Hey everyone, and welcome to another deep dive with us. Today we're going to be tackling online privacy and safety.
It's really relevant to everyone.
You know what I mean? It really is.
It doesn't matter how tech savvy you are.
Exactly. I mean, it's amazing what we can do online,
Right.
but it can be risky too.
Oh, yeah.
So we're going to unpack some practical tips and tools to empower you to take control of your digital life.
Your digital footprint.
Exactly. And our source material for this deep dive
This is a good one.
This is a really fascinating webinar on online privacy and safety. And it's from the Institute for Human Development at Northern Arizona University.
Yeah, those guys know what they're talking about.
And one of the first things that jumped out at me was this stat.
Oh, yeah.
95%
95%.
of teenagers are on social media.
Wow.
With over a third using it almost constantly.
That's a lot.
That's a huge chunk of young people who might be unknowingly putting themselves at risk.
It really highlights why it's so crucial to have these conversations. And, we'll be covering real-life scenarios.
Right.
Looking at how to spot those sneaky scams and even create a super strong password together.
Ooh, I love it. But before we get to the action steps, let's break down what online privacy actually means.
Yeah, let's get back to basics.
Why should we care?
So, at its core, online privacy is about having the power to decide what personal information you share online and who has access to it. It's about controlling your digital footprint. Every time you go online, you leave traces.
You do.
Your name, your birthday, what you search for, where you are, what you buy, even who you talk to.
It's like a breadcrumb trail.
Yeah. Think about the websites and apps you use every day.
I do.
Can you picture all that data being collected and potentially used by different companies?
That's a little scary.
It kind of makes you think, right?
It's like having a digital shadow, and sometimes it feels like that shadow has more information about us than we do. But let's get real. What's the worst that could happen if someone gets their hands on that data? Is it really that big of a deal?
It absolutely can be.
Oh, no.
We're talking identity theft.
Okay.
Where someone uses your stolen info to open credit cards or bank accounts in your name.
Scary.
Then there are financial scams where they trick you into handing over money or banking details.
Yikes.
And don't forget about the creepy factor.
Oh.
The constant tracking and surveillance that can feel like a major invasion of privacy.
Right.
It's about protecting yourself from real harm.
Okay, so we're not just talking about hypothetical risks here.
Not at all.
This is serious stuff.
Yeah.
So how do we avoid falling into those traps?
Well, the webinar lays out some common online scenarios, and I think they're really helpful for understanding the potential dangers.
Okay.
Let's jump into one.
Right.
Imagine this. You're Jamie.
Right.
And you're excited about joining a brand new social media platform.
Fine.
You start filling out the sign-up form, but it asks for a lot of information.
Oh, boy.
Your full name, email address, phone number, birthday location, even your hobbies and interests.
That seems like a lot.
It's a lot to think about. So in this situation, would you just fill everything out or would you pause and think about it a bit more?
Interesting. I have to admit, I'm usually so eager to get started with a new app.
Right?
That I just click through those forms without really paying attention.
A lot of people do that.
Yeah.
But let's break it down.
Okay.
What kind of information do you think is absolutely essential for signing up for a social media platform?
Okay.
And what kind of information might be putting Jamie's privacy at risk?
Okay, good point. I guess your name and email address are probably the bare minimum.
Right.
Everything else seems a bit excessive, especially location and hobbies.
Exactly. The webinar highlights the importance of being mindful about what you share.
Okay.
In this scenario, the safest choice is option B. Only provide the essential information.
Okay.
Name and email. Think of it like this. You wouldn't give a stranger your house keys just because they asked, right?
I would not.
Your personal information is valuable, and it's important to treat it that way.
That's a great analogy.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've talked about oversharing on social media. Let's move on to another scenario.
Okay.
This one involving online banking.
Oh, boy.
Picture this. You're Alex.
Okay.
And you receive an email that looks like it's from your bank.
Oh.
It says there's been suspicious activity on your account. And urges you to click a link to verify your information immediately.
Oh, God.
What would your first instinct be?
Yeah, what would you do?
Click the link.
Yeah.
Ignore it completely, or maybe something else.
This is a classic phishing tactic.
Really?
Scammers try to trick you into clicking malicious links or giving up sensitive information by disguising themselves as trustworthy sources.
That's so sneaky.
Yeah. What seems like the safest bet in this situation?
My gut reaction would be to click the link because I'd be worried about my account.
Yeah, I bet.
But thinking about it more, that seems risky.
You're right to be cautious.
Okay.
The safest move here is option C. Don't click any links in suspicious emails.
Okay.
Instead, call your bank directly.
Oh.
Using a number you know is legitimate, or visit their official website.
Okay.
By typing the address yourself.
Right.
Verify the email's legitimacy before taking any action.
That's a good reminder to slow down and think critically, even when you're feeling pressured.
That's really good advice. Yeah, it's like that old saying, trust but verify.
Right.
It's always better to be safe than sorry when it comes to your personal information.
Okay, so we've covered oversharing and phishing scams. What other online dangers do we need to be on the lookout for? I feel like I'm learning a whole new world of digital threats.
It's true. The online world has its dark side, and the webinar dives into some of the common threats.
Okay.
Like cyberbullying scams,
right,
and even exposure to inappropriate content.
It's a bit unsettling, but I appreciate them addressing these issues head on. Can you give us some more specific examples? What are some of the tactics these online bad guys use?
Well, identity theft is a major one, and we've touched on that already. It's not just about someone stealing your credit card. It's about them using your information to impersonate you, potentially ruining your credit, or even getting you in trouble with the law.
Oh, wow.
Then there are money scams, which can take many forms.
Right.
We've talked about phishing emails pretending to be from your bank.
Right.
But there are also fake investment opportunities, online shopping scams, and even romance scams where people develop relationships online to manipulate you for money.
Oh, gosh, that's awful.
And lastly, let's not forget online spying.
Okay.
This could involve anything from hitting trackers on websites to malicious apps that secretly collect your data without your knowledge.
Wow, it sounds like there are a lot of ways people can try to take advantage of us online.
Mm-hmm.
It's a bit overwhelming. So how do we protect ourselves? It feels like we need to be cybersecurity experts just to use the internet safely.
You don't need to be an expert. There are a lot of simple steps you can take to drastically improve your online safety.
Okay.
The key is awareness and building good digital habits.
Okay.
It's like learning to look both ways before you cross the street. It becomes second nature after a while.
I like that analogy. So what are some of those basic steps we can take to boost our online security?
One of the most important things is creating strong, unique passwords for all your online accounts.
Okay.
And by strong, we're talking about passwords that are long, ideally 12 characters or more, and include a mix of uppercase and lowercase letters, numbers, and symbols.
Okay, so no more password 123, you're my dog's name.
Right, exactly.
But I have so many online accounts. How am I supposed to remember all those complicated passwords?
That's where password managers come in.
Okay.
Think of it like a digital vault for all your passwords.
I like that.
It remembers them for you, so you only need to remember one master password to unlock the vault.
Gotcha.
There are lots of reputable password managers out there, and they can be a game changer for online security.
That sounds super helpful. I'm definitely going to look into that. What other simple steps can we take?
Another essential tip is to always use a secure Wi-Fi connection.
Okay.
Especially when handling sensitive information like online banking or shopping.
Got it.
Public Wi-Fi networks like those in coffee shops or airports
Right.
are often not as secure as your home network.
Oh, okay.
Making it easier for hackers to intercept your data.
So it's best to avoid doing any banking or online shopping while I'm sipping my latte at the local coffee shop?
Exactly. Or if you absolutely must use public Wi-Fi, consider using a VPN, which stands for Virtual Private Network.
Okay.
We'll talk more about VPNs later.
Right.
But for now, just think of it as creating a secure tunnel for your internet traffic, making it much harder for anyone to snoop on your activity.
Okay. Got to be mindful of Wi-Fi security. What else should we keep in mind?
The webinar also emphasizes the importance of being aware of what you share online. Think before you post. Ask yourself if you really need to share that piece of information.
Yeah.
And who might be able to see it.
Good point.
Remember, once something is online, it can be very difficult to completely remove it.
That's true. Yeah, it's like a digital tattoo.
Yeah.
I've definitely become more cautious about what I post on social media.
That's a great mindset to have. And speaking of social media, let's talk about how to navigate those platforms safely.
Yes, let's dive into that. Social media can be a bit of a minefield when it comes to privacy, right? There are so many settings and options. it's hard to know where to start.
You're right, and it's constantly changing. What might be safe practice today might not be tomorrow.
Oh, gosh.
The platforms themselves are constantly updating their feature and policies, so you need to stay informed.
Right.
But the good news is most social media platforms offer a range of privacy settings that give you more control over your information and who can see it.
So it's about being proactive and taking the time to explore those settings, right?
Exactly. The webinar recommends paying attention to a few key settings. First, consider who can see your profile information.
Okay.
Most platforms let you choose whether your profile is visible to everyone, only your friends, or a custom list of people.
So if I'm concerned about privacy, it's probably best to set my profile to friends only, or even more restricted.
That's a good starting point. It's like choosing who gets invited into your digital home.
Makes sense. What about the things I post on social media? Can I control who sees those as well?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Most platforms give you the option to choose who can see each individual post, whether it's public, visible only to your friends, or even a specific group of people.
So I can be strategic about who sees what, depending on the content.
Exactly. It's about being mindful and intentional with your online sharing.
I like that being intentional with my digital footprint. Are there any other social media settings we should be aware of?
Yes, managing contact requests is another important one.
Oh, yeah.
You can usually control who can send you friend requests or direct messages.
Okay.
You might want to limit these to people you already know or block messages from strangers altogether.
That's a good point, especially if you're concerned about unwanted contact or harassment. It's like having a digital bouncer at the door of my social media profile.
The webinar actually goes into a specific scenario on Instagram that illustrates the importance of these settings.
Okay, let's hear it.
Imagine this. You're John, and you've just returned from an amazing vacation.
Nice.
You excitedly share some photos on Instagram.
Fun.
But then you start getting comments and friend requests from complete strangers, which makes you feel uncomfortable.
Yeah, I wouldn't like that.
So what would you do in that situation?
That's a tough one. I wouldn't want to block everyone who's not already my friend, but I also wouldn't want to feel uncomfortable sharing my photos online.
Well, there's a feature on Instagram that might be perfect for this scenario. It's called Restrict.
Restrict. I've heard of blocking, but I'm not familiar with restricting. What does that do?
When you restrict someone on Instagram, their comments on your posts will only be visible to them.
Oh, okay.
You can choose to see them if you want, but they won't be visible to anyone else.
So it's like putting their comments in a hidden folder. I like it. What about direct messages? How does restricting affect those?
You won't receive notifications when a restricted user messages you, and their messages will go into a separate message requests folder, which you can check at your own convenience.
So you're not completely cutting them off, but you're taking control of when and how you interact with them.
Exactly. You also won't see when they're online, and they won't get those seen receipts for their messaging.
Yeah.
It's a great option for those situations where you want to maintain some level of connection, but you also want to protect your privacy and peace of mind.
Restricting sounds like a really useful tool.
Right.
It's a way to set boundaries without completely shutting someone out. I'm going to have to explore that feature.
It's a good one to have in your social media toolkit. Speaking of tools, the webinar also introduces some really handy privacy-enhancing tools that can give you an extra layer of protection online.
Okay, let's talk tools. I'm all about making my online experience safer and more private. What are some of their recommendations?
One of the tools they highlight is a VPN, which we mentioned briefly earlier. Remember that secure tunnel analogy?
Yes, I do.
A VPN creates an encrypted connection between your device and the internet, making it much harder for hackers or anyone else to snoop on your activity.
So it's like having a bodyguard for my data. I'm starting to understand why VPNs are so popular.
They're especially useful when you're using public Wi-Fi,
right?
Which is often not as secure as your home network.
Right.
A VPN adds an extra layer of protection, ensuring that your data is encrypted even if the Wi-Fi network itself is compromised.
So I can sip my latte and browse the internet with peace of mind, knowing that my data is safe.
Exactly. Now, VPNs are just one tool in the privacy toolkit. Another one you might find helpful is an ad blocker.
Ad blockers? I thought those were just for getting rid of annoying pop-up ads.
That's definitely one of their benefits.
Right.
But ad blockers can do more than just that.
Oh, really?
They can also prevent certain types of tracking that advertisers use to collect data about your browsing habits.
So fewer annoyances, Amy, more privacy. I'm sold. What other tools are out there?
There are also privacy browsers, which are designed with a strong focus on protecting user data.
Okay.
These browsers like DuckDuckGo or Brave don't track your searches or store your browsing history, giving you a more anonymous online experience.
Wow. So it's like going incognito all the time. I had no idea these kinds of browsers existed.
And let's not forget about two-factor authentication, or 2FA.
Okay.
This adds an extra layer of security to your accounts by requiring a second form of verification, like a code sent to your phone in addition to your password.
So even if someone managed to steal my password, they wouldn't be able to access my account without that second factor.
That's brilliant.
It's like having a double lock on your front door. It makes it much harder for unwanted visitors to get in.
I'm starting to feel like I have a whole arsenal of tools at my disposal. But I have to admit, all this talk about online security is making me realize how much I rely on passwords.
Yeah.
And frankly, I'm not very good at creating strong ones. We've all been there. Remembering complex passwords for dozens of different accounts can be a challenge.
For sure.
That's one reason why password managers are so helpful.
Right.
They take the burden off your memory.
That's a relief.
Yeah.
But even with a password manager, I still need to come up with strong passwords in the first place. Is there a trick to it?
Absolutely. It's about understanding the principles of strong password creation.
Okay.
Remember, length is key.
Right.
The longer your password, the harder it is to crack.
Okay.
Aim for at least 12 characters, if not more.
Okay. Length. Got it. What else should I keep in mind?
Uniqueness is also important.
Okay.
Don't use the same password for multiple accounts.
Right.
If one account is compromised, you don't want all your accounts to be vulnerable.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
So each password should be like a snowflake, unique, and one of a kind.
Exactly. And finally, don't forget about mixing it up. Use a combination of uppercase and lowercase letters, numbers, and symbols.
So it's like creating a password stew.
Yeah.
A little bit of everything to make it extra strong.
Perfect analogy. Now let's put those password skills to the test. Remember John, who's just back from vacation and dealing with unwanted attention on Instagram?
I do.
Let's imagine John also needs to create a new password for their online banking account.
Okay, high stakes.
I'll give you a few options, and you tell me which one you think is the strongest.
I'm gamer.
Hit me with those password options.
Okay, here we go. Option A, John 1971.
Okay.
Option B, ukulele hike.
All right.
Option C, P at $.
Okay.
Option D, Cyril Semmer, 0.7 sun plus birds.
This is trickier than I thought. They all have some elements of a strong password.
Take your time, analyze each option carefully, and see if you can spot the one that incorporates all the principles we've discussed.
Okay, I'm ready to make my choice. I'm going to go with option D, Cyril no former 0.7 sun plus birds. What do you think?
You nailed it. Option D is the strongest password out of the bunch.
Yeah.
Let's break down why.
Okay, I'm eager to hear your expert analysis.
First, let's look at length. Option D is over 12 characters long, which is a great starting point.
Options A and B are too short, and option C, while it has some special characters, is still a bit predictable.
Okay.
So length is definitely in option D's favor. What about uniqueness?
That's true.
Option D uses a combination of words and numbers that are not directly related to John's personal information,
Right.
making it less likely to be guessed by someone who knows them.
That's true. Options A and B use John's birth year.
Yeah.
And hobbies, which are things that could be easily found out.
Exactly. And finally, option D uses a mix of uppercase and lowercase letters, numbers, and symbols, which adds another layer of complexity.
So it's like a password superhero. It has all the powers.
It's the Superman of passwords.
I'm feeling much more confident about my password creation skills now.
But
I have a feeling there's even more to learn about online privacy and safety.
You're right. This is just the tip of the iceberg. But the good news is we've covered a lot of the fundamentals today, and you now have a solid foundation to build on.
I'm excited to keep learning and to put these tips and tools into practice.
That's the spirit. Stay tuned for part 3, where we'll wrap up this deep dive with even more insights and actionable advice.
Welcome back to our deep dive.
We're in the final part.
Into online privacy and safety. And gosh,
we've talked about so much.
We've covered so much ground.
It's a lot.
From understanding why online privacy matters, to practical tips and tools for protecting ourselves in this digital world.
The digital age.
But before we wrap things up,
yeah,
I'm curious, What about those times when we do need to be online?
Right.
Like when we're browsing websites.
Yeah.
How do we know which sites are safe and which ones we should just avoid, like that suspicious-looking gas station coffee?
That's a great question, and it's something the webinar touches on.
Okay.
Knowing how to identify trustworthy websites is a crucial part of online safety.
Okay.
And one of the simplest yet most effective things you can do is look for the SSL certificate.
SSL certificate, that rings a bell, but can you refresh my memory on what exactly that is?
Absolutely. SSL stands for Secure Sockets Layer. And it's basically a digital certificate that verifies a website's authenticity.
Okay.
Think of it as a digital seal of approval that tells you the website is legitimate and that any information you exchange with it will be encrypted.
Okay, that makes sense.
Mm.
Encrypted means it's scrambled and unreadable to anyone who might try to intercept it, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So how do you know if a website has this SSL certificate?
Yeah. How can we spot them?
It's usually as simple as looking at the website address.
Okay.
If you see HTTPS at the beginning of the address instead of just HTTP, it means the site has an SSL certificate.
So that little S at the end of HTTP makes all the difference.
It sure does. It's a small detail that can make a big difference for your online safety.
Okay.
And many browsers also display a padlock icon in the address bar next to the website address if the site has a valid SSL certificate.
Okay.
So keep an eye out for that padlock. It's a good sign that you're on a secure site.
It's like a little badge of honor for websites that take security seriously.
Exactly. And if you're ever unsure about a website, especially if it asks for personal or financial information, it's always best to err on the side of caution.
Good advice.
Do some research, check for reviews, and make sure you feel comfortable before entering any sensitive information.
That's really good advice. I'll definitely be more mindful about SSL certificates and padlock icons from now on. But even if we're being careful about the websites we visit, there's still the risk of those sneaky phishing emails we talked about earlier.
Right.
Are there any other tips for spotting those fake messages?
Absolutely. Remember, phishing emails are designed to trick you.
Right.
So they often try to create a sense of urgency or pressure you into taking action without thinking.
Got it.
So one of the best things you can do is slow down and analyze the email carefully before clicking on anything.
So it's like that saying, don't feed the trolls, except in this case, it's don't click the fish.
Exactly. And one of the first things you can do is scrutinize the sender's email address. Does it match the official email address of the organization they claim to represent?
Right.
For example, if you get an email that looks like it's from your bank, but the sender's address is something like random mail address at notmybank.com, that's a huge red flag.
So it's like checking the return address on a letter. If it doesn't match what's on the envelope, something's fishy.
Precisely. Also pay attention to the greeting.
Okay.
Legitimate organizations usually address you by your name, rather than using generic greetings like dear customer or valued member.
It's all about the personal touch or lack thereof. Phishing emails often feel a bit impersonal, like they were sent out to a mass audience.
And be wary of any emails that demand immediate action or threaten negative consequences if you don't comply.
Okay.
Phishers use these tactics to create a sense of panic, hoping you'll act without thinking.
So if an email says, my account will be shut down if I don't click on a link right now, that should send alarm bells ringing.
Absolutely. Legitimate organizations will never pressure you into giving up sensitive information through email.
This is all making me think about how important it is to stay informed about online threats. The internet changes so quickly. How do we keep up with all the latest scams and security risks?
You're right. The online world is constantly evolving, and so are the risks.
Right.
That's why it's crucial to stay informed.
Right.
And to adapt your online habits accordingly. The good news is there are plenty of resources available to help you stay up to date on online threats and best practices.
Like what? Where can we go for reliable information?
Well, reputable cybersecurity organizations, like the Electronic Frontier Foundation, EFF, and the National Cybersecurity Alliance, NCA, offer a wealth of information on online privacy and security. And many technology websites and blogs have dedicated sections on cybersecurity where you can find news and tips on the latest threats.
That's great to know.
Yeah.
So it's like anything else, the more informed we are, the better equipped we'll be to protect ourselves.
Exactly. Think of it like this. The internet is a constantly evolving landscape, and staying informed is like having a good map and a reliable compass.
And a sturdy pair of digital hiking boots.
Here you go.
I love that analogy.
Yeah.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into the world of online privacy and safety, What's the most important takeaway you want our listeners to remember?
I think the key message is that online privacy and safety is an ongoing journey, not a destination.
Right.
The digital landscape is constantly changing, and so are the threats. But by being proactive, staying informed, and adopting good digital habits, we can all enjoy the many benefits of the online world while minimizing the risks.
It's about finding that balance, embracing the power of the internet while also protecting ourselves and our information.
Exactly. And remember, even small steps can make a big difference.
I love that small steps, big impact.
Yeah.
Well, on that note, it's time for us to log off and let our listeners process all this valuable information.
Take it all in.
We've covered everything from social media safety to password management to spotting those pesky phishing scams.
Yep.
We've even learned about SSL certificates.
It's a lot.
And the importance of staying informed about the ever-changing digital landscape.
So much.
I hope you feel as empowered as I do.
Me too. It's been great diving into this important topic with you.
And to our amazing listeners, thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Remember, your online safety is in your hands.
That's right.
So stay curious, stay vigilant, and keep exploring the digital world safely and responsibly.
Until next time.